our authorities, and this is a big deal, Tony, what the authorities say becomes the new orthodoxy. So if you go against the authorities, well, you're canceled. I've been canceled. Many of my group have been canceled. It's game over, right?
Dr. Lisa Nolland, it's a real joy to talk to you. Would you like to just begin by saying hello to our viewers and our listeners?
Hello, C4M audience. Wonderful group.
Great. Well, it's great to talk to you. And the reason that I'm looking forward to talking to you today is because I want to tell people about a group that you run, the Marriage, Sex and Culture Group, and we'll get into that. First of all, for those, there might be people joining us for the first time. And just to let you know that we are the UK's leading pro-marriage organisation in terms of, we've got tens of thousands of supporters and groups who support this thing, man-woman marriage. And everyone knows other things happen in a liberal democracy. Okay, everyone's got that. But actually, we exist because we think man-woman marriage is unique, it's special, it brings something to the table nothing else brings. The stats are very clear on that. The research is absolutely abundantly clear on that. And instead of forgetting it, we need to promote it. And that doesn't mean other things don't exist. It doesn't mean other people are worth less than people who get married or anything else like that. But we need to find a way of navigating through because it's important to society. And the reason I love your work and what you do is because you are key in supporting that. And you run a group called the Marriage, Sex and Culture Group, Lisa. I wonder if you could tell us, just kick off, where does it come from? What does it do?
Okay, so it stands for the marriage. So it's msc.support. That's our website.
Yep, we'll put that on the screen.
We call ourselves a group or gang, as it were. We are unique in the UK in terms of we bring together many folk who are appalled by the pansexual revolution, the tragedies that are constantly ignored or minimized within mainstream media. One of the big problems here, in our view, is the mainstream media is toning down all the damage done by the pansexual revolution. But also we want to promote, so we want to push back against that, but also promote what's good for individuals, families, communities. So we do a lot on the pansexual front. We also do a lot globally as well. So we hold hands with people all around the globe, whether they agree with our Judeo-Christian kind of basis or not, that's fine. Anyone who will push back the cultural Marxist envelopment, the woke madness, we want to hold hands with them. And totally, we're delighted to be able to do so.
I've spoken at one or two of your events. I've been to others, and you do attract a significant number of people, and that's great. And like ourselves, you seem to have people from all faiths and none, which again is very, very interesting. You do have a Judeo-Christian basis, but actually you're very broadly welcoming of people of all stances.
In fact, in many ways, our best folks are those who are not within the church, because they're way out there, they see the madness. So they come to me and say, Lisa, what has happened? What's happened to the church? What's happened to those we have thought in the past would have stood, would have promoted, would have supported these good foundational values? Well, they're gone. So it is very important, I think, groups like ours to exist.
Yeah, and you touch on an interesting thing there, because it's one thing giving out the message that marriage is good and man-woman marriage is, brings about the best results and the best version of the next generation, and nothing else comes close, even even people living together and living before marriage actually affects your outcomes for marriage. Statistically, it makes it less likely that it will succeed. All that stuff. Well, we talk about it until we're kind of, exhausted the facts, but we kind of live in a post-fact generation, and nobody, it seems like it's not having any effect, because those who believe in that will carry on believing in that, and those who don't will carry on not believing in that. But it seems, what you do as well in your group is you cover the other side. So you say, well, actually, it's not just that this is good, it's that the other thing is not neutral. So the whole idea of rainbows and unicorns sounds quite fluffy, but it hides a sinister thing. So the outcomes are not, so it's not just saying, well, look, do this because it's good. It's saying, actually, the other thing is not good. And that, I think you get a lot of trouble and a lot of hassle because you bring to the fore stats and details and information which highlights the other side too.
Oh, Definitely. This is not remotely neutral in any sense of the word. And if I may say, for me, one of the huge problems has been, where are the leaders?
Mm.
Have their servers all gone down? There's very serious hard facts data in terms of biology, physiology, etc. But no one wants to go there because they don't want to get canceled. And I understand, but my problem is their silence says no one should go there.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
and so those who look to them for leadership, if this was a real concern, certainly public figures, conservative public figures, would be sounding the alarm. Well, they're not doing that, so I guess it must be fine. And so we are saying, stop. It's not fine. For whatever reason, they are missing in action and asleep at the wheel. And I think, certainly in terms of my Christian faith, Jesus is saying, where is my church? Now, these are for folk who are inside the church, but for the rest, it's like, don't they care about children? See, that actually is in some ways the key thing here. I have folk who are not Christian, who care deeply about the welfare of children and who see the toxicity of this agenda targeting their kids and grandkids. Now, is it game over? No, but we're constantly wanting church leaders to engage with the very latest threats
Mm.
in terms of what's hooking their kids and grandkids. That for
Mm.
me is almost the worst bit of all of this. Is it's
Mm.
not about you and me, Tony. We'll be off in our nursing homes however many, years hence. It's the youngsters. They are targeting the next generation. And these are activists who hook up with useful idiots who go, well, it sounds good. We better do this for the welfare of our children. And I'm going, you do not seem to know what you're bringing on here. And I find that really discouraging.
As well as highlighting lots of evidence and research around the fact that, well, actually, not all lifestyles are equally useful for children to be following or to be promoted to children. Not only do you do that, which again is very, very useful to be done, and we might talk about some resources and refer people to your website, etc. You deal with all the hot coals, don't you?
Yes, we
Yeah.
do. Because in some ways, so one thing we do is, so in terms of those who are listening to you today, so what we're constantly saying to people is listen to what is not being said, listen to where they will not go. And so for our gang, we try to get the most effective pushback mechanisms. And one of the most effective is those who have the t-shirt, who say, yes, I was here for many years. And guess what? It was not remotely what the BBC says it is, but also I found something so much better. That for me is, I've tried this. Whoops, not a very good idea. This is so much superior. And that is, I think, really important.
So while it's, I don't want to go into lots of the research now, etc., we could do at some point maybe another discussion. But if people want to find out more about the things we're talking about, people are saying, well, where is this research and how can I go and read and find out more? Is it your websites? Are there other places you would send people?
That would be one place. If they want to email me, so it's Dr. Lisa, DRLISA 1957 @gmail.com.
Great,
That's
I'll put
fine.
that up.
And I could send them a couple sites and they
Mm,
could pat
mm,
around and see
mm.
what they think.
But the key thing is just to be aware, to be informed, to be knowledgeable, to understand what's going on, not just to take it, take what you read in the news as always the only information relevant to the discussion which is being had.
Correct. That's exactly right. And in fact, one book, which I don't know if you've had him on, a very, very interesting man, Robin Aitken, who was for decades inside the BBC, and he saw firsthand exactly what they were willing to roll out and what they were not willing to roll out. And he's going, stop, how is this right? And of course, then ultimately he has to leave. See, that, I think that for me is what is also so concerning is those who are following the leads of leaders are not realizing, stop, they're not giving out remotely the full story. And in my view, that's just dreadful, particularly when it's impacting their own children and grandchildren. And the only time they really realize, this is not very good, is when their own grandkids come out and say, stop, I used to be this, now I'm that, and my pronouns are da 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 da, and my new name is da 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 da. And then the grandparents go, what? And my church has not, they've just ducked. They don't want to talk about this sort of thing. And I understand, but we've got to start talking about it, Tony, in my view.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question because we have people, senior political figures, who criticise this notion that there's all sorts of wrong materials going to schools, and they say no, it's not. There might be one or two rare instances, but it's being blown out of all proportion, and it really isn't anything to make a fuss about. How would you respond to that?
Either you have an IQ of 3, or you don't understand what words mean, or you are taking your information base from a very, very tiny sliver. And yes, thank God there are many good schools, fair enough. But there are many schools that either are silent where they should be speaking out about some of this, or else they're totally run by, or they're being influenced by activists who have far too much power. And the conservatives, or those who are socially conservative, who want the best for kids, who don't want to get into all that, they are cowed. They're back-footed.
And there's another option, of course, which is that you know exactly what you're doing and you're intentionally deceiving in order for it to continue and get much more of a hold. Where do we go from here? Because one of the things which is, I suppose, one of the problems we've got is that often you find the people that are driving these sorts of things within organizations, not just schools, but all sorts of organizations, have got skin in the game. So they may have a child or relative who is trans, who has gone down a road, who's gone down a process, which you and I might call child abuse. But the only way of them to maintain their sanity is to double down and say, no, this person has literally changed sex or is literally being born in the wrong body. And to double, because the alternative is for them to say, yes, I've done the worst possible thing any parent could ever do, and indulge absolute, craziness in my child to the extent that they are now permanently damaged. And how could they live with themselves if they admitted that? So they double down and they fight for it within their organization. And the whole organization then kind of is too scared to say anything or do anything because of this kind of passionate belief of, often, in my experience, when I've talked to people in these areas, often one or two people who are just stuck in this situation that they cannot possibly extricate themselves from because of the actions they've taken. Where do we go? How do we deal with that?
Let's just take the trans community, because that's very much to the forefront here. Okay, if the youngsters, if I'm speaking to someone who has a youngster and the mother or father is encouraging the trans route, I would say, well, we encourage, so our line, the MSC line, is no sex or nothing irreversible for any youngster until the prefrontal cortex is developed, until all sorts of different biological, physiological, anatomical changes. So they've grown up into adulthood, yes. And so if they want to go down that route, fine, that's their route, that's their choice. I would say, okay, I don't agree with it, but not for children, not for adolescents. So then it would be to ask the parent, are you willing to look at other information sources, other research? We both want the best for your child. It's purgatory for these children and for these families. No one asks really for this. So we would say, we want the best for your child. I want the best for your child. You want the best for your child. Great. How can that best occur? And so if they're willing to look at other ways of handling this gender dysphoria, this profound discomfort, I get it. I totally get it. But if they're not, then you simply have to say, well, I will have to respectfully agree to disagree here with you. It's your child. We both want the best. I hope the best for your child. But you can't force anyone, but thank God for the Cass report. That's been huge. The Cass report to push back and say, stop all this hard data, hard research proving the trans success route. It's like people like me have been saying for years, no, no, just no. but yet because we are not, we don't have the platforms, the power, the influence, it doesn't really matter what we say. So in terms of one-on-one, I guess that's how I would handle this.
Yeah, that's very similar. I spoke to Dr. Miriam Grossman in the US,
Yes.
who's written that wonderful book Lost in Trans
Yes.
Nation, and it's a very good book because it just deals with wherever you are in the conversation. There's a chapter in there which is valuable to you, but she says exactly the same thing. Actually, recognize the fact that some emotional difficulty is absolutely taking place.
Yes.
You know, but it's not the case that that you're born in the wrong body, because that is your body. And dealing with it perhaps in a recognizing there's a problem, but maybe the solution you want is not the right solution for you, which is good. And then of course, as well as the trans stuff, I mean, if we were having an interview 5-7 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about trans, Lisa. We'd be talking about the promotion of homosexuality in schools and other bits and bobs like that, and the idea. We'd be talking about two men having a baby, and that baby was intentionally created without a mother, just for the express desires of the adults. And now it strikes me that those kind of conversations are no longer being had anywhere, really. So were we just messing about, or have we been distracted, or what's going on?
In many ways, the easiest bridge to cross is the trans, because increasingly people are going, hold on, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't sound right. Uh-oh. Our authorities, and this is a big deal, Tony, what the authorities say becomes the new orthodoxy. So if you go against the authorities, well, you're canceled. I've been canceled. Many of my group have been canceled. It's game over, right? Okay, so in many ways, so we're going back in time. No, our concerns have been totally validated. I think the one thing I would say is it is in terms of your two gay guys, your two lesbians, whatever, there are many other sexualities coming out now. But again, because our leaders are scared or ignorant, they do not realize that the very same talking points used for LGB folks are now being used for these other more alternative folks, and legitimizing, hey, oh, this is me, this is my identity, etc. So in terms of the pushback for all of this is, number one, at least I would realize, there are serious issues.
You've raised several really, really relevant things there. We could talk for hours on many of them, but the two things which often get conflated is the kind of Christian discussion about what's morally wrong and right, which is a valid discussion for Christians to have and to hold. And being a Christian myself, I would adhere to those. But then there's the objective, let's look at the evidence discussion too, which is, well, there are certain things we should and shouldn't promote to children in schools. Yep. And that's where it becomes really quite, and this isn't necessarily arguing from a moral basis. We think it's a sin, therefore you shouldn't tell kids about it. But it's saying, look, actually that lifestyle is synonymous with, for example, unrestrained lust. Yep. In certain, and this isn't disputed. Actually men with unrestrained lust will behave in a certain way. And often, it's women that restrain that lust. Yep. So when there's no women involved, it's a certain type of culture. And we should be very careful when we're promoting certain things to children. David Payton, Professor David Payton, who we've spoken to, is excellent. He's an industrial economist, and his research shows quite clearly the more you teach kids about sex, the more sex they'll have. And the more you teach them about different types of sex, the more different types of sex they'll have too. And you kind of think, well, let's try the other thing for a while. Let's try teaching chastity. Let's try teaching saving sex for marriage. And let's also try teaching, well, there's this type of sex which has these types of outcomes, but there's that type of sex, and the outcomes statistically are really not good at all. And you need to know about that, because that's not a good idea.
In fact, no. And Tony, this is so important, because I keep circling back to this impact on children and grandchildren, our kids, our grandkids. For me and to my group, What we are saying very clearly is no child, regardless of any or what's in their head, it doesn't matter. No
Mm.
child should be exploring. And increasingly, what is scary is all youngsters are being seen as potentially queer. So all children are being tacitly encouraged increasingly to, well, if I'm this, then I will want this kind of sex. If I'm that, I might want that kind of sex, etc. So our view, so very much, we do not play the God card here. No, there's hard statistical
Mm.
analysis and research. Sexually active youngsters, regardless, have far worse outcomes in terms of
Mm.
emotional health,
Mm.
physical health,
Mm.
long in terms of educational welfare. But it does show sexually active kids suffer. So what we are saying to all kids, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum, do not explore. And sadly, one of the real problems with this sexual, you can be who you want, etc. Well, what we are hearing is kids try this. Well, it didn't really fly my kite, so then I'm going to try that. Well, maybe that'll work. See, this experimentation is toxic. It's like let's experiment with illegal drugs and see where that leads us. There are
Mm.
huge downsides that most people have no idea of because again, the church is so busy in its little silos. And if you are at all, if you have a job or a profession where you could where you could be canceled, you just keep your mouth quiet. You closed. You don't say. So I feel really bad, and particularly the kids who most are at risk here, kids from single homes, the least, the last, the lowest, basically kids who have had real problems with life. Life is really hard, and that stuff is really hooking them. Whereas your kids from more together families, their parents will say, "You're not going to do that. That's absolutely nonsense." See, the adult here comes into saying, "No, no, no, you're not going to do that. You're still under my roof. That is a bad idea." But these other kids, they are being thought at, and I feel really bad about that.
Yeah, and that's another great point. You know, that parents are the chief educators of their children. Don't forget that. Don't leave it to the state. Find out what your child's been up to. Find out what they've been learning, and give them, corrections in their learning if that's necessary. Absolutely vital. Lisa, tell me. So, as well as back to the usefulness of the group. If people want to join, you've got WhatsApp chats. You've got
Yeah.
all sorts of. And the thing I like about your grouping is it's not just one-way communication from you to others.
No.
People can involve themselves in different
Oh,
WhatsApp
yes.
groups and
Yeah.
chat to each other
Yeah.
till their heart's content, can't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
And again, so if anyone's into that, if you're stuck in a place and you think, well, I've got nobody who I can talk to, well, actually, yes, you have. Join Lisa's MSC group, and there's a load of people on the other end of the line who will just text with you all day, which is quite fantastic.
Yes, we do our best here. But yes, there are many people just like, as you said, I'm the only one. My church doesn't go there. My neighbors don't go there. My daughter thinks I'm far, or son thinks I'm far too conservative. There are many people just like that.
Great. Well, I think that's some people will really be pleased to hear that, and I'm sure will subscribe. I think there is a small charge, isn't there? But people can go and look that up on your website, whatever. And it's nothing unmanageable. It's simply to admin fees and whatever else that paying for websites and little bits and bobs like that. But yeah, Lisa, I think you're doing a great work. It's a brave work, but it's an absolutely essential work. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for talking to us about it today. And we've got the websites and your contact details up, and I hope many people get in touch. Dr. Lisa Norland, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.